January 18th, 2026, 7:45 p.m. Two high-speed trains are racing through southern Spain at over 200 kilometers per hour on a brand new track that was just inspected 3 days prior. The conditions were perfect. Then, without warning, the train derails on a straight section, and seconds later, a collision occurs that kills 40 people. What engineers are calling tremendously strange, because this was a 700 million euro track renovation with state-of-the-art trains. Yet it became Spain's worst rail disaster in over a decade, and the answer isn't where investigators expected to find it.
Derailments don't happen on a straight track, especially not at 205 kilometers per hour. Iryo train 6189 departed Málaga at 6:40 p.m. with 317 passengers aboard, bound for Madrid. Renfe Alvia 2384 left Madrid an hour earlier, heading in the opposite direction toward Huelva, carrying around 100 people. At 7:39 p.m., as the Iryo train passed through track points near Adamuz, a small town of 4,200 people in Córdoba province, its rear carriages suddenly derailed. The carriages were displaced onto the opposite track. The oncoming Renfe train had seconds to react. This wasn't a head-on collision. It was worse. The derailed carriages became obstacles in the path of the Renfe train, traveling at 110 kilometers per hour. The impact sent the Renfe's front two cars down a 4-meter embankment. 37 people were in those front carriages. Most never had a chance. But here's what makes investigators' blood run cold. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The track had been completely renovated in May 2025, an investment of 700 million euros. Officials described it as being in perfect condition. The Iryo train was a Frecciarossa 1000 model, manufactured just 4 years ago in 2022. It had passed its last safety inspection on January 15th, 3 days before the crash. Both trains were operating well within the 250 kilometers per hour speed limit for that section, traveling at 205 kilometers per hour and 110 kilometers per hour, respectively. Spain operates one of Europe's most advanced high-speed rail networks. Over 3,100 kilometers of track connecting major cities. Millions of passengers are carried safely every year. A safety record that rivals Japan and France. Transport Minister Oscar Puente called the accident tremendously strange. Derailments on straight sections are engineering anomalies, the kind of failure that shouldn't happen with modern rail technology. Track points are inspected regularly. Trains undergo continuous monitoring. Every system had redundancies built in. Prime Minister Sanchez canceled his trip to Davos. King Felipe VI cut short his trip to Greece, and Spain declared 3 days of mourning. Here's the brutal irony. This 700 million euro track renovation was supposed to make the system safer, but warnings and red flags were ignored. Your blood will boil when you hear about the negligence. So what caused modern trains on modern track to fail so catastrophically? The first clue came from something invisible to passengers. Initial investigations identified a faulty rail joint as the key to understanding the disaster. Think of high-speed rail like this. The track isn't one continuous piece of metal. It's made of segments welded or joined together, and those connection points are where things can go wrong. At 205 kilometers per hour, a train wheel rolling over even a tiny gap, we're talking millimeters, generates massive forces. Investigators found a broken joint that had created a gap between rail segments. Every time a train passed over it, the gap widened just a little more. Eventually, the Iryo train's rear wheels slammed into that defect at full speed, and the wheels had nowhere to go but off the track. But this track was just renovated 8 months earlier. Every weld and joint should have been inspected, certified, verified. The 700 million euro investment was supposed to eliminate exactly these kinds of failures. What makes this particularly troubling is what happened 6 months before the crash. Train Drivers Union had sent a letter to Adif, Spain's railway infrastructure operator, in August 2025. The warning was explicit. Severe wear and tear on the railway track in this exact area. potholes, bumps, imbalances in overhead power lines causing frequent breakdowns and damaging trains. According to reports, no remedial action was taken, which raises a darker question. Was this disaster preventable? But the challenge ahead is an impossible rescue mission in the dark, in a remote area of a small town. Adamuz, a small town with a population of 4,200 people. Suddenly, it became ground zero for Spain's worst rail disaster in 13 years. 40 people dead, including the Renfe train driver, 292 injured, 122 hospitalized. The front carriages of the Renfe train had tumbled down the embankment, metal twisted and contorted around the people trapped inside. Access was extremely difficult. Rescuers worked through the night in complete darkness. Spain's military emergencies unit deployed 40 personnel and 15 vehicles to the crash site. A sports center in Adamuz was converted into a makeshift medical facility. The Spanish Red Cross established a help center offering assistance to emergency services and families desperately seeking information. The Civil Guard opened DNA identification offices across 5 cities: Córdoba, Madrid, Málaga, Huelva, and Seville. Some victims were so badly injured that forensic analysis was the only way to confirm identities. Survivors described total chaos. Rocio Flores, a passenger on the southbound train, told El País she escaped through a window covered in bruises, grateful to be alive while others around her weren't. Video footage showed passengers climbing out through windows and rooftops, bloodstains visible on the wreckage. Francisco Carmona, the region's chief firefighter, explained the horrific challenge. The carriages are destroyed. The metal is contorted with people inside. By the next day, 79 people had been discharged from hospitals, but 15 were still fighting for their lives. While rescue teams worked through the night, a nation demanded answers. What happened in Adamuz isn't just Spain's problem. China, France, Japan, Germany, they all run high-speed rail carrying millions daily. And if a faulty joint this small can cause catastrophic failure on a track renovated just months earlier, no system is immune. Here's what's haunting investigators. Why did rear carriages derail at the points? Was it the joint, the points themselves, or both? And if union warnings about track wear were documented 6 months earlier, why did inspections 3 days before the crash give it a clean bill of health? Transport Minister Puente says the investigation could take a month. But the question remains, can high-speed rail ever be truly safe? Or are we always one invisible flaw away from catastrophe?